I'm going to show you guys how I turned these simple pictures into this epic edit.
Last night, while I was deep in a YouTube binge, I got a message from my director. He said, "I've got a project for you." I replied, "All right, let's hear it." Turns out he had an edit from MagnatesMedia, the documentary editing god and honestly my favorite channel ever. So of course I said, "I'm in." But then came the twist. He needed it urgently. I asked, "Okay, how much time do I have?" He said, 1 hour from now. I was shocked. I thought, there's no way I can pull this off. But then I listened to the edit outline, and it was so good, I just had to do it. So I accepted. It's not about the money. It's about the passion. All right, first things first. I'm bringing all the images into Photoshop and arranging the layers to keep everything organized and easy to work with. I'm gonna save this as a Photoshop file. Next, I import the Photoshop file into After Effects. I'm going to make the comp size to 1920 by 1080. Then, I convert all the layers into 3D so I can start working in 3D space. After that, I begin spacing the layers apart from each other, creating depth from the camera's perspective. Now, I scale and reposition each layer to set up the scene just right. Perfect. Time to create a camera. I'm using a 50mm lens and setting the f-stop to 1.2. This gives us that dramatic depth of field effect. Let's switch the iris shape to hexagon for that cinematic bokeh. I'm going to change the focus distance to the main character. Now I'll create a null object and link it to the camera. That way, I can animate the camera more easily using the null. All right, let's drop in some keyframes. I want the camera to move into the scene from the window, just like this. Next up, animating these fighter jets. I'm going with 3 of them. I duplicate the jet layer with Ctrl+D, then keyframe their positions. Apply easy ease to make the motion smoother and more natural. This part takes a bit of tweaking to get it just right.
Easy ease the camera movements.
Perfect. Now I shift the focus distance to the fighter jets. They're a bit blurry, but that's because motion blur is turned on. Let's smooth the camera keyframes a bit more for a cleaner movement. All right, time for the next step. I add some text and convert it into 3D as well, moving it toward the camera in 3D space. To animate the text reveal, I use an opacity keyframe with easy ease. Then I duplicate the layer to create another text variation and customize it as needed. The text is a little blurry, no problem. I adjust the focus distance to bring it into sharp view. That's the basic animation done. Now I go back and refine all the keyframes to improve the overall look. Actually, I'm not loving the opacity reveal, so I'm switching it up. I'll animate the position instead. Now the text reveals with movement. Much better. Once the text is fully revealed, I adjust the focus distance again. This time to the dollars layer. Perfect. Smoothing out the camera animation, and it's looking nice. Now it's time to add the final touch, the ending blood drop effect. I import a green screen blood drop footage I grabbed from Today Sponsored. Just kidding, I downloaded it from YouTube. I drop it into the comp, make it 3D, scale it up and move it toward the camera. Next, I apply the key light effect to remove the green background. Then use time remapping to adjust the duration. But I don't love the red blood look, so I change it to black. Gives it more of an oil spill vibe. Now I tweak the keyframes again. The fighter jets still feel a bit slow. Let's speed them up. Much better. I also don't want the oil drip to overlap the text, so I move it below the text layer. Perfect. Let's extend the composition to about 14 seconds. Feels like a good length for this scene. Still not happy with the text, so I tweak it for a smoother appearance. And adjust the camera keyframes again. Perfect. Time to stylize the text. I add a flicker effect. And throw in some glow to make it pop. Now let's add smoke for more realism. I make it 3D and place it under the room layer, adjusting its scale and position for the right look. Then I duplicate it and add another smoke layer in front of the camera. That's a bit much. I'll keyframe the opacity for a more subtle reveal. Yup, that's the vibe I want. Next up, color correction on the dollars layer. I use levels and adjust the settings just a bit. Looking great. Time for final checks. I go through the whole scene and fix any details I'm not happy with. Let's add a drop shadow to the text to help it stand out more. Tweak the camera animation a little more. And we're done. Wait. Let's add a bit more sauce. I drop in 3 adjustment layers. One for vignette, one for camera shake, and one for a posterized time effect. The posterized time gives us that gritty, junky look with more natural motion. I set the vignette to 60% and use the transform effect for camera shake, scaling up to 102% and adding a wiggle expression. I apply the posterized time effect and drop the frame rate to 12 FPS for that stylized vibe. Now I want the main character to stand out more from the background, so I add a drop shadow, tweak it, then duplicate the layer. On the duplicate, I apply a fill effect to make it yellow. Remove the shadow, scale it up, and add radial fast blur. Lower the opacity to create a subtle glowing edge. Here's the before and now the after. I don't like the sharp corner edges, so I mask them out. Perfect. Time to preview the whole thing. My laptop is struggling, but it's worth it. With the smoke, blur, and camera shake, it looks awesome. Now it's render time.
I'm going to export with H.264 format.
The render time only take about 4 minutes. I send it off to the director and cross my fingers. I hope they love the result. They love it, but ask for one change. Slow down the fighter jets and shift the final camera focus to the text. Easy fix. I'll stretch the jet keyframes to slow them down. And update the camera focus to land on the text. Perfecto. Final render. And we're done.
After wrapping up the edit and delivering the final cut, I realized something. It wasn't from MagnatesMedia. It was from MagnatesMedia, a channel that, as it turns out, doesn't even exist. Well, whatever. I hope you picked up some tips from this tutorial. If you want the full breakdown, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with tutorial. Thanks for all the love and support. See you in the next video.